The time is exactly 18 after 9 o'clock, and welcome to Apolloquani, listeners on One Nation FM. Thank you for joining us, and I do hope that you're going to enjoy the second hour of the show. We will be talking with a medical advisor at Proactive Health Solutions about World Arthritis Day. We're also going to be looking at highlighting Joburg, and that is with Wendy Alexander. But first up, just when you thought that you've heard it all, something else is taken out of Pandora's box. And this time around, I'm so spitting mad about this issue because I'm working very, very hard to pay for these fat cats having a free ride. So just when you thought you've heard it all, lo and behold, we are told about, and I think this was a slip up, we weren't meant to know about this, the perks that the executive members of the state garner through the ministerial handbook. To talk to us about it is Dr. Dale Mckinley, economic and political analyst. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning to you and your listeners.
A ridiculous situation, is it not? I mean, if you are employed by a national or international corporate, I'm kind of wondering, would they give you free housing and all of these perks as well, in terms of paying for a house that you have to still maintain back home, wherever it is. And then when you are being relocated, because this is the argument here, as a minister, when you are relocated to Pretoria, etc., you get all of these amazing perks. Or am I being a little too critical about the situation?
Well, there's actually quite a lot more to it than just getting subsidies for moving your house and things. I think we need a little bit of history here. So this ministerial handbook, which you're referring to, was secret until a few years ago when civil society organizations basically pressured the state to make it public. And what we found at that time was all of these different kinds of perks. I mean, housing is just one of them. I could go through, I think there's a list of about 10 to 15 different kinds of perks, ranging from free flights for all of the family members, for your spouses, for your children, basically free, not just one house, but two houses, car allowances, free accommodation wherever you go, house renovations, payment of your domestic workers, out-of-pocket expenses taken care of, and trips. And now I think the latest trigger, which was what we found out from a whistleblower, is the cap of 5,000 Rand on the water and electricity has now been removed. So essentially, all the ministers and deputy ministers will now no longer pay a cent for any of their consumption of water and electricity. And we also have found out that most ministers and deputy ministers in Pretoria and Cape Town are not being load shed. So their places are exempt from the load shedding. So it is quite a list of different things. And in the response to your question, I don't think it's really good to compare the public and private sector in this regard. Public sector politicians are there to serve the people. They are there as public servants. I don't think anybody begrudges a deputy minister, a minister a decent salary, and certain things that you normally, pensions and these kinds of medical aid and things that you would get. But beyond that, I think where the anger, and rightfully so, is coming is because there's a free ride on to pretty much everything. And yes, I mean, CEOs in private sector probably get, their packages are much larger and probably get quite a lot of different things. But I think we don't compare apples and oranges in this case. What we're looking at is our public representatives. We expect them to serve us. We expect them to basically not be so far from the people. I think what makes people very angry is the fact that while we have been told to tighten our belts, while we have been load shed, while we in Johannesburg here, where I am, have been watershed for the last month, while we're basically having massive price rises, fuel, inflation, you name it, across the board, our politicians are living it up, and they're not having to take any of this pain. And I think that's what makes people angry, and it's unacceptable.
You know what else makes me very angry, Dale, is the fact that, and you can't generalize here, but we do know that a lot of these politicians have already been fingered in all sorts of scandals, money scandals, in corruption, in tenderpreneurship, and all of those things. So, on top of, earning fat cat salaries of between 2 to 3 million rands per annum, all of the other freebies that you've talked about as well, they still have their fingers in the till. How much more greedier can you get? Can you? I mean, can one eat with two hands? Come on.
Well, I mean, that's precisely. I mean, the state capture and the Zondo Commission report, I think, gave us a really good view into all the different things that have been happening on that front. So, besides, as you say, the salaries and the perks and everything else, whether it's ministers, deputy ministers, officials, lower level politicians, whatever, have been caught up in a whole range of corruption scandals. And I mean, just Zwellen Kiese and the Digital Vibe scandal, Ace Magashule and the asbestos, and it goes on and on and on. Our ex-president and our own sitting president with regards to the Pala Pala scandal. So, yes, I think and I had said this in a debate not long ago when people were asking, well, how is it that we got to this point? What? And I said, our political culture basically has become one of get what you can while you can, damn the consequences, so to speak. In other words, it's basically we have an attitude where political offices become not about serving people, but about self-enrichment and advancement and power. And that's the fundamental problem. Whether it's a minister or whether it's a local councillor or whoever it is, it's a local official in a department, this notion that basically you don't really have to do your job. You basically can just get what you can while you can and enrich yourself, and then you move on to the private sector or somewhere else after that with a very fat pension and all sorts of big bank accounts. And I think this is where we have to change. Our political culture has to change. What we've lost in South Africa, and I think in many places around the world, is a culture of service, is a culture that says when you're in the public sector, that's what you're there for. As I said, nobody says you shouldn't get a decent salary, you shouldn't be able to live comfortably, but that's it. Beyond that, you're there to be able, and we've gotten a situation where our politicians have gotten so far away from ordinary people that I don't think they understand what people are going through, and that's a danger. So when there's such a gap that exists between ordinary folks and people at the top of the political and economic pyramid, we see what happens. We have social conflict, we have constant sort of unpredictability in our society, and we have a situation where ordinary people are asked to pay the price while the fat cats, as you say, live at large.
I can close my eyes to a lot of things, and you can say, all right, fine, they've earned their stripes. They fought for the freedom from apartheid, etc., etc., etc. What I can't close my eyes to, what I can't accept is I'm a hardworking taxpayer. Uh, these people are living the high life, and that's also okay. But the country is falling apart. Look at our roads. Look at our infrastructure. Look at the filth, the rubbish, the litter on the roads. This is supposed to be a world-class city. Johannesburg is supposed to be an African world-class city, but it is filthy. It is falling apart. There's sewage on the roads, in the streets. Electricity doesn't work. We're not getting, look what's happening to the water services. What next? Health services come to a standstill as well. So this is my big gripe, as is with the rest of the country. What do we do? How do we make our voices heard? I think we can go on banging about this for days on end. Nobody's hearing us. Something needs to give. What is that something, Dale?
Well, I would somewhat disagree with you in the sense of nobody's hearing us. I've been an activist for the last 30 years in different civil society organizations, and while we have to acknowledge all of the difficult things that have happened and where we are, and yes, it is very, very frustrating, and makes one very, very angry. But the civil society organizations, ordinary people, have managed to change things, and it's a gradual process. I mean, the very fact that we, a few years ago, we were sitting with basically a government that was completely ignoring everybody, didn't care what anyone was saying, was basically trying to jail or put whistleblowers away for blowing the whistle on corruption. And we had the Zondo Commission. We've had a range of different things that have come up. It's a long haul. So the only options for us as ordinary people are to be active citizens and to try to basically change our political choices. So what we see in the ANC has been the ruling party for 28 years. It is fundamentally losing and hemorrhaging support. It's probable that in the next local government elections, it will not win a majority nationally for the first time since 1994. That's a fundamental change. What that opens up is windows for new political forces, for independent candidates, for example. People must begin to start saying, okay, if the political parties aren't serving us, let's do that ourselves at local level. We've seen communities taking matters into their own hands, and I don't mean negatively, I mean positively in terms of doing things. This is when government fails, when your elected officials fail, a democracy demands that people begin to take that space. And over time, I think what we can do, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be rough for many, many years to come because the damage is deep and the roots have gone deep in terms of the lack of maintenance. And we can see that with ESCOM, we can see it with a whole range of things. But there are good people in this country, many, many good people, and people who want to see things happening. And the only way for us to change that is to become active, to speak out, to pressure, to vote differently, to run ourselves, to establish community organizations, projects, other things that begin to say, if the state is failing, we'll step in and do these things. And we're going to change this state eventually, and whether that's at the local level. I know that some people want change right now, and that's understandable. But you don't, when a house has been partially on fire for 28 years and it's been neglected and the foundations are creaking, you don't just change it the next day. It takes a little bit of time. So people, I think we're going to have to gird ourselves. We're going to have to sort of say, okay, this is going to be a bit of a long haul. It's going to be difficult, but we can do this because I reject the sense of hopelessness and there's nothing we can do. If we adopt that attitude and we simply complain from the sidelines, well, then we deserve what we get.
Indeed, for your optimism, maybe it will make me look at things a little differently. Thank you for being on the show this morning. We'll wait and see how things pan out. Please, God, let us all become as optimistic as you. Thank you for your time.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you.
That was Dr. Dale Mckinley, economic and political analyst. A bit of a ray of sunshine there, won't you agree? So perhaps I should start changing my mindset and become more positive. Maybe I should be looking at the glass half full rather than half empty. Very difficult to do under the current circumstances, but let's give it a try. It is exactly 9:31. News and views on Salam Media still to come. 2 more interviews, so I do hope you're going to keep me company.